Guys, it is that time again. Welcome back to another edition of the Raptors 2K podcast, brought to you by our friends at UberEats. A lot has taken place since the last time we worked together for episode number 15. You know, some holidays have passed. The NBA 2K League draft just passed as of last night, so it's good to reconnect here. Of course, I got my boy, my ultimate co-host, homie, my man Shane. Shane, tell me what's going on in your world. I know the world of esports is in a little bit of peril right now, but hopefully everything's good for you in the squad.
Yeah, good to see you, man. I think it's been since before Christmas, so good to reconnect. And when we were talking to Johnny, we were going to possibly record one last week, but with the league having the draft yesterday, it just made sense. Let's just kind of pick up right after the draft when we kind of know what we're looking at for a Raptors Uprising roster this year. And we got India joining as well. And, we always keep it a buck here, but sounds like you guys have some questions about the moves that were made. I can tell you, the one that was, obviously nearest and dearest to my heart was Kenny, but I won't steal our thunder. However, I will say going into it a little skeptical, I sat in on the reasoning and it was incredibly well thought out and researched and all that. So I'll look forward to being the devil's advocate, advocating for the side of the moves that were made, even though, again, it was a tough one for me, saying bye to Kenny. But I want you guys to kind of check. I want us to have an honest conversation about, what we did and the direction we're going, because it'll be fun to look back at the end of the season and see, what ends up playing out. But yeah, esports is crazy. I mean, AMP is a little bit removed from esports specifically. Like our business, we're allowed to, we're able to kind of cross over into all kinds of different, genres and collabs and like budgets. When you're thinking about partnering with brands, we can do sports stuff and comedy stuff and whatnot. But we're definitely in an esports winter. We were just talking about this a few moments ago before the cameras were rolling. The sponsorship world is crazy. I mean, we're definitely in a recession. It seems pretty obvious. For me, I remember back when the pandemic broke and they were talking about, this might lead to a recession in the wake, I started Googling because, in 2008, 2009, like I didn't really feel anything myself necessarily as like a high school kid or whatever. My dad, worked in the stock market. I'm sure he was stressed, but didn't really feel it necessarily myself. And I was like, what am I going to notice if we go into a recession? And the article I read kind of started off with talking about like air travel. And I have felt that because air travel is a nightmare right now. It just feels
Sucks.
Like everyone's under-resourced, everyone's understaffed, and can you find a flight for under $1,000? Like it's just crazy how expensive it is to fly right now. So we're in it, and the other area that definitely touches is marketing budgets, sponsorship budgets, and esports is going through a little bit of a winter. Lots of layoffs at some of the bigger orgs, and nobody is insulated from that, even as hot as AMP is. Certainly the conversations we're having with brands are everyone's kind of tightening their belt. But again, one of the things we were talking about just before this is I was, tuned into the draft, thinking as some of these other leagues that had just such crazy overhead and burn rate are starting to kind of fizzle out from the beginning and kind of, built something that seems sustainable,
All right, well, Shane is having some technical issues, which is all good. Shane, okay, you're kind of lagging a little bit there, man. Don't want to do that in the actual 2K game. That might be a little bit of a problem, but it's all good. But no, I feel everything you're saying, man, and really it just kind of comes down to, you just always got to be prepared. As you said, it's a little bit of a bubble in it. Maybe we're starting to see it burst just a tad bit, but for everybody involved in at least the 2K league, there's some stability there for sure. So, big shout outs to everybody involved in there. I know that, again, the draft night was yesterday, so it's a good look. All right, well, before we jump into everything, Shane, what are you going to be ordering from UberEats today? I got my Poke Bowl already queued up, and I'm hoping it's going to get here before you. I gave myself a head start this time.
That's like at least 6 straight Poke Bowls, I think, for you. I'm gonna go I'm gonna go with a Canadian classic, a Mr. Sub, 12-inch assorted, extra cheese. Yeah, it's like Subway but better.
Oh, okay.
So growing up as kids, so there was Subway, and they basically cut the bread, but they leave it, like attached on the one side, and there was Mr. Sub, and they cut it straight across. I think Subway blew up, became even bigger, and became even more like kind of processed, whereas Mr. Sub stayed a little more mom and pop and humble. And so whereas Subway has kind of deteriorated to a point where I just can't even really eat it, Mr. Sub is still a classic that I love and reminds me of my childhood. So be getting one of those.
And they've probably got less controversy. So with that said, let's jump right into the podcast. Somebody who's actually there on the floor, in the fray, made in India, somebody who's made it in the 2K League is now joining us to give us his thoughts on exactly what went down in that historic draft night. India, welcome to the show. I'm literally manifesting you here, and there he is.
Law of attraction, it's a thing, Phil, I promise you. But hey, Phil, Shane, thank you so much for having me on the Raptors 2K podcast.
great to have you here, man. You're such a pro, even from like the first 5 seconds of just hearing your radio voice. It's like, oh yeah, I can already tell this is going to be an easy one. Sometimes Phil and I have to like pull the conversation out, and sometimes they just flow a little easier. I bet you this is.
You're gonna have to mute me if we go too long, so that won't be an issue.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, hey, like you found your lane though, right? You started off doing stuff on Twitter. A lot of guys do. A lot of people have, I think, early on looked for opportunities within the 2K League, and I can say a lot of people through Twitter found it. You know, people kind of found ways to rise to the top, and you are one of those guys. And I know Matt and some of the folks at the league identified you pretty early on, and it's been great to watch your role with them grow. And you know, like I said, you're just a true pro. You were here in Toronto for Scout the North, and I got to see it. So. Good to have you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Appreciate that so much, man. It was plan C. I wanted to be a player, realized 6 minutes in it wasn't going to happen. And then, you know, I got to be a scout for Big West and the Hornets. And it was just good for Matt and BFW. Obviously, Frank himself gave me a shot, and one thing led to another, man. It's fun. And now I've got a whiteboard full of nerdy 2K stuff behind me with the draft.
Well, it looks pretty good. I can relate to you on the wanting to be a player and then switching over to the media side of things. Like, I'm right there with you, bro. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I've heard funny stories, man. We got to hang sometimes.
Absolutely. But, you know, it can be rewarding for sure. I mean, for you, you know, Indy, I guess like the first thing I really want to know is like, how has your like life kind of changed since, you know, becoming an official member of the 2K League? Like, what's been the biggest difference for you these last couple of years?
I'm someone who loves to know what is happening behind the scenes, right? Like, how does this individual that I'm watching on TV know when to toss it, know to do this? How are the graphics being done so well? How's a replay happening instantly? This play just happened 2 seconds ago. And now I finally get a chance to do that, right? Like, when I'm on air, now it's like, yeah, the producer's in my ear, and I got to concentrate on the producer about who I'm tossing it to while talking about my hit, while looking at the camera and remembering what I have to say and everything else. So it's the behind the scenes that I've really gotten to learn a lot more about. And I feel like I'm truly a part of the community in the 2K scene, right? Because, you know, I came from Twitter, like Shane mentioned, so I was sliding into DMs when I wanted to play. I was like, hey, man, I'm a power forward at 7'3", terrible build. Don't ever do it. But, you know, I got a chance to watch people play themselves, like Gazuli, Bag Motion, Bray, who just got picked as well. So it's kind of cool to then see them on Twitter, to play with them in these tournaments, then to interview them in post-game interviews when we're in our hub, in our home station. So it's full circle. It's great. Absolutely love it.
India, did you have any like traditional broadcast media training? Like, did you literally just come off Twitter and start providing analysis? Or like, did you go to school for this?
Did not go to school. The only broadcast experience I had was in the shower, pretending to be somebody I wasn't yet, to be honest. You know, and so like I said, Phil, law of attraction, man. But no, and you know, Harris, my man, makes all fun of me a lot because he went to broadcast school. And I was like, so Harris, you're saying you and I have the same job and you went to school for it? Is that what you're telling me? But no, it's fortunate. And I joke with people all the time. Shout out to my third grade teacher. Being a class clown has finally paid off. That's how I look at it. It took 30 plus years, but it finally paid off. And I absolutely love what I do.
Yeah, but it's a great example of like the internet being like an equalizer, you know, it just sort of creates like equal access. Like literally all you needed was a Twitter account and, you know, some drive and some passion. And because I listen to you, and even again, the way your voice sounds, you know, when you're talking to us, like I'm an amateur, I'm just here because of my affiliation with the league. And because I think I know stuff and I speak confidently about the things I think I know about. Right. But you, when I'm talking to you, like I can hear it. I mean, I could see going on a trajectory and maybe it's long-term 2K League, but I could see it being other, you know, IRL sports, you know, TV broadcasts. Like you have that very professional broadcast character to the way you speak. So it's awesome. You know, I love the fact that, you know, someone who maybe didn't realize they were, you know, good at this at a young enough age to go on the right career, you know, or sort of education path, found it through other means. It's a great story about finding an opportunity on the internet.
I appreciate it, man. Like I said, this is plan C. Wanted to be a player, wanted to be a coach or a GM, but this was plan C, and honestly, it's the best thing that could happen to me.
That's great.
With players, it's stressful. You sure know that, but yeah. Sorry, Phil.
No, you're fine. I mean, obviously, like you talk about stress, just look no further than last night. You know, the draft went down. I mean, obviously, you were there, you were covering it, and I just got to get from your perspective, just being on the floor. Like, what was the vibes right there? Like, what were some of like the biggest surprises that came out of draft night for you?
Bougie being picked by the Hornets that early was just flabbergasting to me, especially when you had Glow, who you could have taken to play alongside Crown and possibly have a phenomenal defense going into season 6. And then you could have gotten Bougie on the back end, right? Let's be honest. Bougie was probably not on a lot of people's draft board. Should he be in the league? I believe yes. But at that pick, no. Right? So to me, that was the biggest surprise, biggest reach, if you will, of the night. And of course, you had a couple of snubs that we can talk about here in a moment as well. But that's what it was for me. I thought the Hornets could have managed things a little bit better.
And they've historically been able to like find gems in the draft, right? Like
yes.
I've always been historically impressed. It always seems like they're down and out with their picks. They've had some bad bounces here and there, people getting, suspended and stuff like that, and always seem to be able to make something from it. So might this one age well for them? Or you think it's objective?
Well, here's the thing. You just left season 5, not making the playoffs in either game modes, right? You had twice the opportunity. You still couldn't do it. And you had guards who were the lowest, probably bottom 5. They had 2 point guards. They had Tate and they had King Hod, and they were in the bottom 5 in points per game, efficiency, this, that, the other. And then you still went ahead and took a swing this season. I love Big West. He knows I've got a lot of love for him. But, man, Big West, if you want me back in that war room, call me. Call me.
Shots fired.
But, yeah, that's the biggest one, Phil, for me was just Bougie. Again, I'll make it clear. I believe he should be in the league. He's got the talent, but I don't think they set him up for success. Because, Shane, how many times have you heard this where a player gets drafted too high, now has to go ahead and live up to that expectation, does it, and that hurts his career down the road? Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but it happens so often.
I mean, yeah, that happens across sports and esports systems that have drafts, right? Like it happens in sports all the time too. Someone comes in and they're just a little inflated. Although I guess the 2K League is more prone to those types of wild swings because it's a little bit less analysis done on it at large, right? Talking about traditional sport, there's just whole armies of analysts and scouts, and the development system is a lot easier to kind of know, to scout from, to know what you're getting by the time they get to the draft, right? That's always the thing with the 2K League, and that's why I kind of laugh because I trust that you're probably right. Obviously, I'm at arm's length these days, so my level of knowledge on this is just based on my experience, and less about the current data set. But I laugh because maybe at the end of the season we look back and that turned out to be a great pick, and Wes knew something. Who knows?
I can hear Wes flipping all this right now.
Yeah, exactly. He's keeping it. He's keeping the receipts for social later.
I mean, that's kind of what you have to do essentially, right? I don't know, obviously there was a lot of things, and you mentioned snubs, but before we get into the potential snubs, this is the Raptors 2K podcast.
Yes, it is.
India, break down to me what has happened with this team now. Kenny is no longer Kenny, one of my favorite players, one of the journeymen who was still on his original team from season 1, has now departed. And the team is just it just looks like a whole different, unit. What's going on?
To me, I feel like when Chris signed his contract with Raptors Uprising GC, it was in there that I'm going to bring a broom and just clean house. All right, because that's pretty much what just ended up happening throughout the trades that he's done and things like that. And I will say, him and I have had conversations. I love what he's doing with the trades and the picks. But it's a couple of them that I'm just not quite sure about. Like Gazuli trading up to that to make sure that he, gets his guy. Absolutely love that because he was definitely not going to make it to the later picks that Raptors had. So I love that. That was a great trade to go ahead and grab him. Mooch, he did a phenomenal job in Dallas with the amateur event that we had down there. Really turned it up. The momentum carried over. I think that really shed a light into his capabilities. And of course, he went ahead and played off the league bench last year, things like that as well. Another great pick at lock. Love those. Seam at center is the biggest question mark that not only me, but I think a lot of people have, right? Like this team will go as far as Seam can take them in 5s. I don't think he'll play 3s, but that's the biggest thing. It's like if Seam is playing center, what's the game plan, right? And to me, I was like, maybe it's the add and drop situation that you can now do for the first time in the league. Cool. But Shane, you can correct me if I'm wrong or anyone else that knows this. I believe you have to have 2 assets to do that. I believe the Raptors have 1 asset now. So it's like, so you're pretty much with this team now. You've got 1 asset remaining. You can make 1 trade, but this is almost your ride and die. And that's the biggest question mark for me. is, are you willing to go down with Seam if it doesn't work out? Too harsh?
Yeah. No. Hey, yeah. No, we keep it real here. Like, I think, to echo what you said off the top, like, listen, I believed in the guys that we had. I've always believed in Kenny, and to be honest, I mean, going back 3-4 seasons, we said, hey, Kenny, if the game changes and all of a sudden it becomes more of a stage guard type league, like, you're a depth guy. You could reinvent your career in a lot of different roles. And there were times, like when we had picks last year where we had Dimes, Kenny, and our high pick that we ended up getting Fanta with, and we talked about, who is the right guard to ask to change roles. And it was like, at first, a coin flip between Dimes going to center and Kenny going to something else, right? Perhaps lock, right, for instance, maybe even center, which he's kind of dabbled in from time to time with us. So, I always kind of thought, like, Kenny can play in this league almost as long as he wants. He's just such a good guy to have in a locker room. And, like, it's such an asset for organizations, especially when there were 6-player rosters, right? Like, then it would have been like a no-brainer. This guy could have played probably for another decade. But we always wondered whether he would continue to be a point guard. And I know he really locked in and took it seriously and said, I'm going to be the guard, this offseason. So I was looking forward to being able to see that. But I can say, as biased as I probably am towards Kenny, we sat down and looked at the trades, and Roy was incredibly well researched and prepared. And it was like, okay, this is something we have to do, and like you said, he came in with a broom. I don't think he did come in with a broom saying, I'm going to completely clean house. I think he kind of approached it methodologic. Why can't I not speak right now? It's the internet. Slagging. Methodically. Thank you. Yeah. And
it was a lag, Phil. It was a lag.
Exactly. That's all it was. I did. My brain didn't stutter. It was the internet. And to look then at the beginning of the offseason, I kind of knew what was on the table as far as the players we had and what assets were available. To look at the number of assets that Roy was able to stack up to rebuild with, it was very impressive. He really, I think, played his cards well, even though, again, I would have loved to see Kenny a point guard. Excited to see him with the Warriors. I've always been a fan of Charlie, and I like that organization, so I'm glad he landed there. That's great. I don't know enough about the draft class to know about the picks. I love hearing your reaction to Gazuli and Hom. I think when the number of guards that went that early in the draft, Hom at 13's probably got to be a pretty good lock, right? It seemed like there weren't too many locks off the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Him and Sub, just I feel like you could have interchanged them and it would have been fine. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And you talk about the Warriors. The Warriors themselves also let Gradient go to Atlanta, someone that's been with them for such a long time. So if anyone knows about picking up a veteran and losing a veteran, you want to talk about empathy, Warriors gaming squad, they're the one.
Yeah. And we had, again, Dimes went to center last year, and look at what happened, right? And now he was the first center off the board, I believe, this year. So, guys who have played guard can make that transition. Has Seam ever played center? Have you seen him in Pro-Am or anything play center?
So in Pro-Am he has, but I won't lie and say I've watched him tremendously, because, again, it's like, hey, if you're playing a position that I don't think you're playing in the league, I'll make a note of it, similar to how speaking of Dimes, I remember calling the WR Select draft, and it was Dimes at center. And we were like, okay, this is cute. Maybe you're bored with the league stuff and you're trying center out. But then, the more we thought about it, it's like, okay, this man actually wants to play center. So we'll make a mental note of it, but won't come back unless we really need to. From my understanding and from the conversations that are happening, Phil, it's like, hey, Seam has never played center in the league, but that doesn't mean you can't excel at it. Obviously, we saw Dimes do that, but is Dimes the exception to the rule? We'll find out.
I mean, he's a gifted player. I mean, his validation is he won a title. You know what I mean? So, and maybe that's, maybe that alone was enough to inspire others to be like, okay, well, we're confident in our skill set. Maybe we can approach it and apply it to another position, right? Maybe that's kind of what they're thinking with Seam. I mean, Seam's a great player, right? Like, no one's going to debate that. Right. It's just like, I don't think center. I don't care how long I've been out.
I would have loved to see
center when I think Seam. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the conversation. Is like, would have loved to see Seam back at the 2, right? Yeah. But then it's like when you've got Mooch, when you've got Gazuli, it's like, all right, you're drafting them to go ahead and play their specialty, their positions, right? That kind of made it clear that, hey, Seam's playing the 4 or the 5. Then you go ahead and get put back. It's like, hey, Seam's playing the 5. unless you do an ad drop situation, which makes sense because of the way 5v5 is going to be played in the second half. But, again, with the ad drop situation, with the assets that I believe y'all have left, ride or die, seen.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. If you're rebuilding and you're in the position we were in where we didn't have high picks, in fact, we didn't even have a first, right? You got to remember we came into the offseason with players. And again, as much as I believe in Type, Saint, and Kenny, I think there was probably the most trade interest in Saint at the beginning of the offseason, but there wasn't a lot being thrown at them. And yeah, and without even a first of our own, to be able to have that many picks, 2 in the first round, et cetera. Actually, was it 3 in the first round? They ended up trading up, or 2, and they traded up the 1 and then got the 10th. You got to start with a rebuild somewhere, right? So you're not necessarily going to get all 5 of the players you want when you're in like the first year of a rebuild, right? Yeah, I'm excited to see what they can do, though. I think, if the level of preparation that's gone into the draft and the effort and attention to detail that I've seen throughout the offseason translates to, the regular season and the way that they prepare, I wouldn't be surprised if, these guys are able to get as much out of this lineup as anyone in the league could. And I think we all know, yeah, I was just saying we all know nobody plays 100% in the games, right? So it's like the teams that can play closest to 100% of their practice potential can beat any team in the league on any given night when those nerves start hitting and people just aren't quite playing the same way, right?
Yeah, everyone's got a game plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? Then what do you do? And I know exactly. Roy's big on analytics. Him and I have talked about that a couple of years ago, so it's great to kind of see it all translate back. But everyone's got a game plan. Clearly, y'all do as well. Like I said, love the guards, love the lock. Putback was, solid. Could have played better last year with Hoxtown and GC. Let's see how he does up north now. But yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens when y'all get punched in the mouth, because you had a game plan with Fanta last year, right? Threes was supposed to be your thing. But the man that you picked, what was it, 7th overall in 2022 is now out of the draft. So it's kind of like, hey.
That's a fun one to revisit. Who was drafted after him? Who was drafted after 7th last year that is back as a point guard this year?
I would have to. Are you asking that because you know the answer?
No, yeah, you're right. That's probably bad form, right? No, I'm asking you because I expect you to be the expert.
Steam.
Right, but we got that guy.
But he's switching positions, though. So did you get that guy, or did you get a different version of that?
We got a different version. Same human, different player.
Same human.
Sometimes you just got to reinvent yourself. That's true IRL, and apparently it's true in the game as well. So, I'm eager to see what kind of results Raptors can produce. This organization has definitely had some success in the past for sure. Got a couple banner chains, so there's no reason to think like they can't. And like you said, Roy, like very analytical, well thought out guy. So I it's a little radical. When I first kind of started catching up on everything going on, I was definitely scratching my head, but I'm gonna reserve judgment until we see a first couple of games. Now, the real question too is, what do you think that the team might excel the most in, 3s or 5s? Yeah,
threes. And I agree with you 100%. Look, I want to make it clear, I'm excited to see the Raptors play because I'm excited for Gazuli range, the memes that are going to happen. I am very excited to see the electricity that Mooch and Gazuli are going to bring, right? It should be flabbergastingly great to watch. That word may not have worked perfectly in a sentence, but we'll move on from it. To answer your question, though, Phil.
Better than my mistake.
Oh, yeah. To answer your question, though, threes, man. Like, whether it's going to be whatever lineup you have, whether it's Mooch, Gazuli, and Ham, or whether you have Putback in the mix as well, or Seam goes ahead and gets a shot to do his thing. Of course, a lot of it's going to depend on the league build as well and who kind of is able to adjust to what. Because you're going into the draft having an idea of what the league build is going to look like. Yep. The world and their grandmas are waiting for a popper to come back, but we may not get that in season 6. But I say that to hey, you also are drafting a team because you're assuming what the league build may look like because of previous years. You're also looking at Pro-Am and how they can adjust this, that, the other. But I think threes is where the Raptors will excel a little bit more than 5v5.
All right, fair enough. I'm eager to see. To expand on that too. Sorry if I'm hogging this up, Shane. Given everything that you've seen take place, what teams do you think are best equipped to go to championship contention for 3s and 5s right now? Like after all the smoke is clear, what are you looking at and what catches your eye immediately for those teams?
I think majority of teams that only needed about 1 or 2 players are the ones that are best set up. So I'm talking about 76ers, right? They just needed one lock. Who do they get? They got underrated GOAT, a.k.a. Eli, the same exact lock that they had last year. The only person that's new there is DJ Money that they got through the trade with the Hornets. Besides that, everyone's the same. And I think that chemistry, there's so much conversation happens around like, hey, does chemistry matter? Do you need to be best friends or just load up in the game and go to your room type thing? I think chemistry matters absolutely. And bringing back the same guys and gals to be on your team, I think that really helps with schemes, rotations, rapport, all that stuff on and off the court. So I think they're definitely one of the favorites. T-Wolf, similar thing. Obviously, you went ahead and got Clampism, Mr. Irrelevant, last pick of the draft. But you've got Bear and Kai coming back, Slaughter, tip-off MVP there. So he's definitely looking to make some noise. But the team that I think drafted the best with moves, Hawks Talon GC, I am biased, shout out A, and Pacers Gaming, right? Cody, he's been waiting. Pacers Gaming have been like a revolving door. Come in, come out. There's that Simpson meme where, you come in, put your hat up, take it out, go back out. I feel like that's what the Pacers have been lately.
Yeah.
But now they've got green light, they've got snags. They've got range, big rain from last year as well. So, they're looking to make some noise. I believe Chess is over there playing the 2. Love what they're doing in terms of how well they drafted because they needed 4 people. They needed 4 solid picks. They got the job done. And I mean, Hawks Talon GC. You get the best shooting guard with the number 1 overall pick. Thankfully, they didn't miss on that so far on paper. And then you also got Gradient, one of the top 5 locks with the trade from Warriors Gaming Squad. That's huge. Now you've got Hot Shot that's going to need to elevate his game. Right? So very excited to see what the Hawks do, man. Because Hawks last year were like a 3v3 team, maybe not a 5v5 team, but now I think they're well-rounded.
Yeah, they've struggled for a while. Who's the guard, who's dribble god? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. He's been in the league. BP, is he still in the league or is he out?
Yeah, he is not. BP announced his retirement after last season. So in the offseason, he announced his retirement. Yeah. And unfortunately, wish him the best. I believe he's looking to be a influencer streamer, whatever his game plan is. I think he also tweeted that he may come back. And that's the thing is like, sometimes you just need a break, man. Because all of us are on air. We do different things, right? Sometimes you just need a break. It is not mentally easy to play the game consistently at a competitive level, season, off season, whatever. So you need a little,
especially in a losing season, man. It's demoralizing,
Yeah.
That's one of the things that's like the craziest thing about this is how badly everyone wants to get drafted and the effort and you see how active things are on Twitter in the off season. Everyone's trying to put their best foot forward and then people are feeling slighted by lists and comments and then there's a lot of shots being fired and whatnot. Everyone just wants to get drafted and then you get drafted and it's like most people are going to be on a losing team, and like the experience of being on a losing team is tough. So you really have to prepare yourself for you are about to work really, really hard to, even if you get drafted, more than likely end up on a losing team. And everyone will end their season on a loss other than one team. So it's crazy. You got to be in love with the process.
Yeah, and you called BP a dribble god for a very good reason. But unfortunately, the dribble god, as good as he is, unfortunately has had majority of losing seasons, I believe, than he has had winning seasons.
100%,
you know what I mean? Like he hasn't made a lot of money as he would have liked for his family, for himself. And that's the reality of things. Well, the reality of any competitive thing, whether it's esports or sports, whatever the case may be, it is not easy. People, I talk to my friends and they're like, wait, these folks get to just play video games for a living? And it's like, yes, but just like any other job, it is tough. It is brutal,
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
Can't call in sick.
yeah, especially now with 5-player rosters.
Yes.
Do you think they should reinstate this? I'm sure it's like a budget thing, which obviously makes a lot of sense. But do you think no? Okay.
No.
Really, you're
out of respect to you though. Out of respect to you though. Finish the question.
Well, I was gonna say, do you think it'd be a good idea to reinstate the 6-man just for I remember seasons 1 and 2, like when you had a really good 6-man, just kind of screaming for you. Sometimes that was enough to rally the troops, man. And the fact you could sub them into was always a really good look. I felt like as well. And a little bit of a plan B, but I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like that guy on the sideline, man, I feel like that really matters. I mean, you mentioned camaraderie is a big thing. I don't know, having somebody just rooting for you, no matter what team is up there, your record, all that. Like, I feel like it was a good look. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
That's great. All those traits, characteristics, personalities, find that at least one of the 5 individuals that you have. You know what I mean? Like, to me, and look, let me be very clear. When I was arrogant when I came into the 2K League as a fan in season 3 and actually tried to make the league in season 4 and got brought back to reality, being a 6-man was the only opportunity I had, right? Because I had the numbers, I had the analytics, I'm a streamer, I can be funny 9 times out of 10. But like, other than that, I wasn't good at the game. And to me, a 6-man sometimes gets picked with that type of personality and different things like that. So I understand the importance of a 6-man and all of that. But the reason I'm perfectly happy with the league getting rid of it is because it puts more pressure on the teams and the GMs and the coaches to do their homework that much more and not have any more buffer room for mistakes. And I love the intensity being turned up, which is why, and then, you now have an adjustment with this whole add drop rule that teams are going to have to smart about. Let's see how that works into play and what the rules are and how they utilize that as well. But nah, man, it's unfortunate that more individuals can't be a part of the league, but hey, expansion teams are coming left and right. We've now got 2 for 2 straight years. Excuse me, we've gotten 1 for 2 straight years, so 2 total in the past 2 years. Opportunities are on the horizon. So many new coaches have been able to come from the community. We talked about me coming from the community. Head coach Roy himself has come from the community. I was looking at DMs, and him and I talked a couple of years ago about like analytics and nerding out from the community. Coach Juice with Dukes Infinitos coming from the community. Right? So many folks are getting that opportunity. Turns up the pressure, and I love it, especially because I get to yap about who's good and not bad and does not affect my paycheck no matter how well they do. So I agree I got the easy job.
You want to see a couple Led Zeppelins go down.
Yeah.
Gives you something to talk about. So you already kind of said... You already kind of said who, the most shocking pick and kind of identified a couple teams that you thought won the draft last night. What's like the next big storyline? Like, was there anything in particular, a reaction, anything like that kind of caught the community?
We talked about Bougie being such a surprise pick. I think the folks that unfortunately did not. Well, let me talk about 2 individuals that I'm so happy they got drafted. Merc, very happy for him. He's been trying to go for the league. Unfortunately, didn't make it 2 straight years. Wasn't sure if he was going to this year, but he finally.
Yeah, we had him on our board back then.
Yeah. And we can touch on that. Yeah, power forward. Yep. Goes by Birch now, I believe, is Merc, Birch, whatever. I want to go with Merc. It's easy for me to pronounce there, but happy for him and happy for Glowski, another individual. Tried to make the league for 3 straight years, 2 times, couldn't get in. That Kings pick was the one I was keeping an eye on with Dimes just going there. Dimes and Glow played with Breakout together. Thought that might have been the pick, but they went with Carey instead. And you can just kind of see whenever they do those listen-ins or those tune-ins on camera, and you see Glowski's face, who's got his mom in the crowd as well. But thankfully he got picked. Very happy for those 2 individuals. I am sad that Big Perm, a.k.a. lawyer turned 2K Pro, didn't make it to the league. You had JB tweeted out that on his board with Nick and everybody else, it was Clampism, who was Mr. Irrelevant, last pick of the draft, and then Big Perm, right? So, you talked about, Shane, how Merc was on your board, and sometimes the folks at home don't understand. It's a 50-50. It's either this guy, that guy. It's either this gal, that gal. And depending on how the draft goes, especially in those later rounds, you take who you can get. Best available. So Big Perm, very sad for him not to get drafted. He might need to switch positions to one that is more available, possibly, to give him a little bit of versatility. Maybe Locke could be a way for him to go. And then, of course, Trey Dallas was, I think, the biggest thing. The way that he competed in Dallas next to Spam with ESGN, I really thought that kind of solidified him being in the 2K League. Sad to not see him be a part of Season 6 for now. Because, again, add and drop. I'll mention it. I'll be a broken record. That could really give these folks an opportunity to go ahead and get back in the league. And lastly, not elite shooter for 3s. Really thought he would have been solid. I mean, we got a chance, Shane, to see him in Toronto near Halloween when he won the tournament in that lovely studio, by the way. Really thought he was going to get picked.
That guy is goated. I don't know how he didn't get picked. I thought that was amazing.
But since we're on it, Scout out, shout the North, because a couple Canadians got in. So Sub Goated, I think, went 14th to Cavs, and Native 36 to Warriors.
Native,
So
very
that'll be a little
that.
icebreaker for Kenny and him to get to know each other, talking about Toronto. And then our guy Doug's, I'm seeing in the notes that the powers that be behind the show feel he would have been drafted had he not been removed from the pool. I don't know if there's any intel on what happened there, if that's a personal thing, but disappointing, because Doug's has been my guy for a while.
Yeah, based on, I'm just going to talk about what was public, and based on him tweeting it, unfortunately, I don't think he was part of the pool. I do believe that it was his best chance to get back in the pool, especially he's been killing it on the PlayStation side of things. Again, dominated in Dallas just a couple of weeks before the draft. But to the powers that be, just wasn't able to get the chance to be drafted. And it is what it is, unfortunately. But wish him the best of luck, too.
A question for you, because I saw Kenny tweeting about it, and I didn't keep close tabs on what was going on in the offseason, but I saw time at that recent tournament, that Pro-Am tournament. Did Timely Cook stand a chance at getting picked up this year, or was that a pipe dream?
I believe there was only a couple of teams that would have picked him up. And I think one of them, to me, and I'm not all-knowing, but one of them, the best chance I think he had was T-Wolves Gaming to play the 4 possibly. Or the 3, depending on if TB wanted to shift around or not. But the shift he played so great last season, I don't know why you'd move him from the 3. But I think Timely Cook, his best chance, in my uninformed opinion, would have been T-Wolves Gaming. But again, you had Clampism up there still, and you had Big Perm up there. And based on the tweets and conversations I've had, it looked like Timely Cook might have been the 3rd or 4th option. And unfortunately, when you're the 3rd or 4th option for a team at power forward, you really need things to go your way.
Right.
So pipe dream, I think he had a legit shot. Unfortunately, it wasn't a 50-50 for me. It was more so like a 20-80 and the 81 out.
It's too bad. I would have loved to see him back in the legue for sure.
He was on the league bench last year. Yeah, he was on the league bench last year.
He played for T-Wolves at one point, right?
I don't think he subbed in for T-Wolves, no. I don't think he did. I could be wrong. I don't remember him. I
one of us
is
wrong. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's okay. Usually me. I'll take it. That's what my mom tells me. But maybe he'll end up on the league bench. Maybe he'll be picked up again, get an opportunity. The same way Seldom. I mean, amateur player of the year doesn't get drafted. The only one, mainly because it's the first one, but still, that's a headline, right? And maybe he knew he wasn't going to get drafted, and because he didn't show up in New York for the draft, as far as I know. So many storylines. I could yap about it all day. But that's why you love the league, man. That's why you love doing this, right? Because so many.
I love the draft aspect of the 2K League. The draft, I think, on the list of things that they did really well, I think the draft was just such a great idea to kind of always keep it this way and not let it function like other esports leagues, because you would have just had
So you're not a fan of signing?
So dynamic. I am a fan of signing in certain esports. I think, this esport makes it tougher, right? Like, I think if, it would just be a thing, I think it would be used as a loophole. People would just not declare for things or intentionally, throw interviews and stuff like that, knowing that they can just be signed by the team they actually want to go and play for. I saw one tweet came through the group chat with the Raptors leadership where someone was saying, I'm just going to keep it a buck. And I'm sure you know who it is. Like, if you're not this team or this team, don't draft me. Right. And it's like, you look at that and you're like, it's crazy that he does that so publicly and in the open, but if you condemn him for doing it or punish him in some way or draft, manipulation or whatever, that's not going to stop the problem. It's just going to be less public than that. You know what I mean? Like, people have always been saying this. As a GM, I used to get DMs all the time, being like, don't draft me. I'm not trying to come there, et cetera. So people have been trying to kind of manipulate their way onto specific rosters forever. But, it's an unfortunate thing. Now, I think that having as much structure as they have around the draft is good. Like, you see how dynamic these teams are. No team has ever really been able to remain dominant. I mean, maybe had Jack not retired, Wizards would still be dominant. I can see that being a dynasty.
They'd have had 3. They'd have had 3.
They would have had 3.
Oh, they'd have had 3.
I mean, they made it back to the finals without him. So yeah, absolutely.
That was crazy.
But here's and Phil, I don't know what you think about it, but I don't know if I'm in the majority or the minority here, but I respect the tweet that went out. I don't know if we're allowed to say the individual's name, so I won't, but it is public, so I think it's fine, but whatever.
Yeah, you can say it.
I respect it. Okay, so I think it's perfectly fine that Greenlight went ahead and tweeted that out, because I think regardless of what any individual's reasons are, I respect his. He's got things going on that are important to him. He's made it public, so I'm okay talking about it. And in those situations, you got to stay closer to family. You got to stay closer to home. I believe, Shane, you recently got engaged. Congratulations to you. I know I'm hella late, but still. But it's like you understand how important it is to stay connected and this, that, and the other. And so many players in the league have families, have kids, and all this other stuff. You got to go ahead and take care of your own, right? So I respect it. And like you said, people have been doing it since season 1. It happens all day, every day. This dude was just confident enough to make it public, to put some pressure. And, that Blazer pick came in a little bit late. It took them a minute. And I don't know if it's because of what. Maybe they wanted to go green light. Maybe they didn't. I have no idea. But I know as I'm seeing the picks come in, it was bop, bop, bop. But that Blazer 5-1, Phil, was hang on a second. Why is it taking a few minutes? Lo and behold, they go with Claude. We'll see how happy Claude is with that one, along with Chaos. But I respect it, is what I was saying. With green light, I respect it. Family first, everything else second.
Yeah, well, here's to another draft, and looking forward to a 6th season of the 2K League. And I don't know if you guys heard that, but I think my doorbell just rang, and that means that I've once again beat Phil with the UberEats delivery.
It's what just else is new, bro?
The traffic is just a lot better here than it is out in bougie LA where Phil lives. So that's a wrap. Bougie-ness. We got to eat our lunch. India, anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, man, it's been a pleasure. Absolutely love what Raptors are doing. Obviously, content was, everything that you guys do so well. Really looking forward to see what the rookie head coach Roy does with his 5 gamers, and hopefully you can have the success you had in season 3. But looking forward to season 6 and the tournaments that you guys put on in person. Loved it. Looking forward to more of those as well. And look forward to being clipped and possibly having a little social media hit, because I was wrong about the whole seam situation. But that seems to be seen later down in the future.
Yeah, we'll see if Roy Genius had it right all along.
That's facts. I do want to give, before we get out of here, I do want to give one big shout out. Like, I know some people who've obviously been in the league for a couple years, maybe not making it back. I mean, I notice people like Moody, Dave Fry, Ye, they get opportunities still within the league, even not as a player. So I feel like if you're still, you want involvement in the league, your opportunity as a player, maybe that's kind of winding down, but I think the league does a good job in creating other opportunities for folks, and they obviously pay attention a lot to people who are active, engaged in Twitter. So hopefully some of those guys can continue to pick up some success, because I think it's a good look.
100%. Demon JT joining the broadcast, right?
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. He's amazing.
He's amazing.
Pull up your shorts. Tagline, all him. He needs to get a T-shirt made. He'll make millions. So, yeah, absolutely love that the league tries to find ways to have their former pros get on the broadcast. The day Bear retires, I've lost my job. That's my final thought.
Oh, no. Hope they get another championship this year then. So, but no, that'll do it. Hey, India, you've been an amazing guest. Really appreciate you coming through, sharing your wisdom, insight, and some laughs with us for sure. Shane, as per usual, one of the GOATs. Love working with you, buddy. And you already know, I'm just Phil. Nothing special. But this, of course, was the Raptors 2K podcast, brought to you by our friends at UberEats. So thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.